Hello again, good afternoon, welcome back to the marketplace. Inflation rate for the month of January has declined marginally to 7.8%. The development means that even though the inflation was increasing last month, the rate of increase in January was a little slower compared with that of December 2019. Professor Samuel Kobina-Enim is government statistician.
Basis, there has been a slight slowdown in the rate of inflation from 7.9 year-on-year basis to 7.8 year-on-year basis. So December 2018 as against December 2019, the year-on-year inflation as released in January this year was 7.9, and on year-on-year basis, that is January 2019 relative to January 2020, is 7.8%. This means that the general price levels have increased by 7.8% higher than the prices that we recorded in January 2019. And as a matter of emphasis, the month-on-month inflation between January 2020 relative to December 2019 is 1.4%. We further do the major contributors of the 7.8 inflation that we've just shared with you. And ladies and gentlemen, the main component, the main drivers, the main contributors of the January 2020 inflationary rate is led by food and non-alcoholic beverages, which is taking slightly to fifth of the entire inflation rate, followed by transport, transport and housing. We go further to do the disaggregation by sharing with you the major drivers for the month-on-month inflation. So the 1.4% that we shared with you earlier on, food and non-alcoholic beverages is taking about 70% of it. So out of the 1.4 month-on-month inflation, 0.99 is attributed to food and non-alcoholic beverages. We do the disaggregation based on two main components, food and non-food inflation, and also locally produced and imported items.
Now, with the implementation of the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement, there are still doubts if Ghana's trading community is prepared for the challenges and opportunities ahead. Checks by Joy Business have revealed that even though government is making frantic efforts to ensure the smooth takeoff of the CFTA, industry players may be unaware of the opportunities available to them. In this report, colleague Charles IT engages some of these stakeholders in Ghana's export community on their preparedness so far.
In July this year, all trade barriers in Africa are expected to be removed to pave way for the Continental Free Trade Agreement area. This will see African economies trade among themselves in a single market which will be created under the agreement.
We know that the success of the AFCFTA would mean that the era of low volumes of intra-regional trade that have defined the activities of African economies will come to an end.
Seated at the heart of the central business district of Accra, this will be the building that houses the Secretariat of the Continental Free Trade Agreement area. Previously, it was termed as the Exim House, but now it has been rebranded the Africa Trade House. But ahead of its operation by the end of March this year, we're asking how prepared Ghanaian businesses are.
With the hosting of the Continental Free Trade, a lot of other countries will come to Ghana and to trade with other countries in Africa. So seriously, they might also have incentives and low interest rates, and their prices will be more competitive. So how do we put ourselves together to take advantage of this continental free trade and to trade among ourselves as Africans?
But research suggests that neighboring African countries to Ghana will become competitors rather than export market destinations when it comes to most agricultural products. In order to reduce the impact of this, CEO of the Ghana Export Promotion Authority, GEPA, Efuasabi Asari, outlined some cash crops that GEPA will prioritize to give Ghana a competitive advantage.
I'm looking at cashew. I'm looking at some of the fruits and vegetables, our coconuts, our apparel, our arts and crafts. Pharmaceuticals is very big. and then plastics, and even our services now. You know, GEPA has a new department for services, and so we are even selling our services. We are bringing in students from around the continent to come and school here, because we have some very good universities here, and it's working. We are bringing in, we are sending out nurses. We are doing all kinds of things when it comes to services. So I think services is now important. We should look at services, tourism, all of that.
The Continental Free Trade Agreement area will be the world's largest free trade area, with a market size of 1.2 billion people. And of course, in terms of revenue, we're looking at close to 2.5 trillion US dollars in gross domestic products. If planned well, Ghana could be raking in billions of cedis in annual GDP, especially when several of its exports are much of high grade. I'm Charles Aite for Joy Business.
Now, the Vice President, Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia, says for the first time in 20 years, Ghana's economy has witnessed an unprecedented trade surplus for 3 years consecutively. He noted that the improvement in trade surplus has enhanced the country's total international reserves as well as its net international reserves.
The results of the fiscal consolidation are evident, and the data shows that significant progress has been made to restore macroeconomic stability and economic growth. The growing confidence in the macroeconomy owes a lot to the prudent management of our public finances and monetary affairs over the last 3 years. To underpin fiscal discipline going forward, Ghana has for the first time in history passed into law a Fiscal Responsibility Act that limits the fiscal deficit in any year to a maximum of 5% of GDP and requires a positive primary balance to ensure debt sustainability. In addition to a Fiscal Responsibility Act, we established a Fiscal Council to provide oversight and advice on the implementation of fiscal policy. This has never been done in our history. So as a result of good fiscal discipline, the fiscal deficit on a cash basis has declined from 6.8% of rebased GDP in 2016 to 3.8% in 2018, 4.8% in 2019, below the fiscal rule of 5%. This, for the first time in a decade. So we are managing the public finances better. For the first time in a decade, ladies and gentlemen, Ghana recorded primary balance surpluses. Primary balance surplus means that our tax revenue exceeded government spending, excluding debt service payments. For 3 years in a row, this is for the first time in a whole decade of 10 years, for 3 years in a row, we've achieved primary budget surpluses for 3 years in a row. The primary balance surplus was 0.5% of GDP in 2017, 1.4% in 2018, and 0.9% in 2019. This compares with a deficit of 1.1% in 2016. And a positive primary balance is important because when you have a positive primary balance, it means that you are slowing down the rate of debt accumulation. That is what it means. A positive primary balance means you are slowing down the rate of debt accumulation. And that means you are really implementing good fiscal management and prudent fiscal management.
All right, so we'd like to get some more explanation to all these terminologies and figures and their importance to us as a country. Now, let's speak with Executive Director of the Policy Initiative for Economic Development, Daniel Amate-Enim, who has joined us on phone for his thoughts on this positive development. Good afternoon, sir. Welcome to the market, please.
Good afternoon.
All right, so when we talk about positive primary surplus or positive primary balance. What does it mean?
Yeah, thank you very much. Basically, when we talk about the primary budget surplus or balance, what it means is that we have managed the economy in a manner that our debt stock is a little bit or is fairly dropping, and as a result, we have this primary surplus with relation to debt accumulation. Or what it does is that the rate at which we managing our physical space is getting. I mean, that means that the basic. So we are getting the basic right, and that's the reason we're getting that primary surplus as part of our physical management. So basically, this is what it means within the realm of finance and economics.
All right. Now, the Vice President also mentioned the fact that, unprecedented trade surplus has been recorded last year, and for 3 consecutive times, the country has, or the economy has actually recorded this trade surplus. What exactly do we mean by that?
Please come again.
Unprecedented trade surplus has been recorded, as put in by the Vice President. What is the meaning of that?
Trade surplus, right?
Yes.
Yes. Basically, when we talk about the trade surplus, it means that the country's total value in terms of exportation, goods or products that we exported as against the cost of import, we have recorded a positive figure. In a very simplistic statement or terms, what it means is that the volumes of product that we exported to the other economies as against the importation of goods into our economy, we have done more than we have imported. And as a result of that, we have recorded a surplus figure, meaning that we did better than what we imported from other economies. And once you do that, you will record a trade surplus. What is very important in terms of the economics of trade surplus is we should be looking at the items that we do export. Are we still exporting it in a raw form, or there's a value addition? Because to me, trade surplus hinges on 2 critical things. One, either you are adding value to your export, and that's the reason which you are having the trade surplus, or you minimizing your import. So, for instance, if you used to import more cars, more computers, more sugar, whatever from other economies, and this time around you have reduced the volume, you are likely to record a trade surplus. On the other hand, if you are still importing the same value, but this time around you have added value to your export, or you have increased the quantum of your export, you are likely to get a trade surplus. So these are the dynamics or in terms of trade surplus in any economy.
Which generally means is a positive development, because we have many a times touted the fact that we have high import bill. Now, if we are recording a trade surplus, and which means we've cut down on our imports, why is it that it's not reflecting, or is not actually reflecting in the currency's performance against the dollar?
Yes. If you look at the dynamics very well, in real terms, we are not actually adding value, just as I've stated. We are not actually adding value to our traditional export products. I think what is helping in this dynamics is because of our new oil discovery. We are now oil exporting country, and once we exported oil, we are likely to add more than the usual traditional exports or the traditional product that we do export. So these are the dynamics. That if we want our trade surplus to really have impact in the living standards of the people, then number one, we should be looking at reducing certain imports which we have a competitive edge in producing. For instance, sugar. We import so much, and that of rice, where we have a competitive advantage in terms of its production. So if we can focus on making Ghana rice and produce more, market it to other economies, and maybe consume more, then we are in a better position of ensuring that the trade surplus will have a positive impact in the living standards of the people. That's the first aspect of it. And then secondly, if we want a trade surplus to have a positive impact in the living standards of the people, then we should be looking at adding value to our produce, because the value addition creates more job opportunities in the country than the norm that we have now. So to me, these are the dynamics that if we should focus in our trade equation, it will have a positive impact in the living standards of the people. But as it stands now, you can be recording the trade surplus, but if the dynamics is still staying, you are not likely, or you are not in a better position to create opportunities and also improve the living standards of your citizens.
All right. Many thanks for that input. Daniel Amate Inim is an economist. This is On the Marketplace. We're taking a short break here. There'll be more after this. Many thanks for staying back. Now, government has indicated its preparedness to permanently ban the import of overaged vehicles. Minister of Parliamentary Affairs, Osei Mansampunsu, stated the move is to create an enabling environment for vehicle assembling companies to leverage and fast-track their establishment in the country. In AM Business, Fred Duhope finds out what the various automobile stakeholders make of this development. Here's a repeat of the story.
Launched an automobile bill last year and has since granted some tax holidays for car assembling plants. The Minister for Parliamentary Affairs, Osei Mansampunsu, has reaffirmed government's commitment to enforcing a strict ban on vehicle imports of over 10 years of age. He stated this when addressing the media in Parliament.
You cannot have them come to begin the production of new vehicles when you allow unfettered importation of second-hand vehicles. It doesn't obtain anywhere. So you have to regulate the importation of second-hand vehicles. For a start, maybe we may begin by banning the importation of vehicles that are older than 10 years. And then also prevent the import of salvaged vehicles. Salvaged vehicles are vehicles that are involved in accident outside, vehicles that are flooded, people clean them up and bring them here. They are the reasons why we have so many accidents on our roads.
On the back of this announcement to ban overaged vehicles, Joy Business visited the Tema port to make sense of the number of vehicles that come through our ports. Eduche is the Assistant Commissioner of Customs at the Tema ports.
On the average, every month, we are able to clear not less than 800 to 1,000 vehicles. If you bring a vehicle which is not more than 1,800 cc or 1,900 cc, you pay 5%. If it is more than 1,900, you go into the 10%. And then when this is more than the, I'm just talking about the cubic capacity. When it is over 3,000, you go into the 20% import duty category. When it is less than 10 years, irrespective of the brand, you don't pay overage penalty. Yeah, overage penalty is like a punitive. A punitive measure to maybe keep the importation of vehicles which have been more or less to say discarded somewhere.
CEO of Erata Motors, Edukusi, thinks the directive must come into force to sanitize the car importation business.
It's like the new ones are more expensive, and also the new ones attract a lot of duties. So if you bring slightly used ones, you get some depreciations from the government, some from 15% down to 50%, depending on the year. So it's like when you bring the used ones, it becomes reasonable for everybody to buy. Yes, it comes back to affordability. Yeah. For me, I think it's the best if they can take this decision. Yeah, cars that they change the steer from other side to other side. Some cars are already right-hand side. They'll bring it to Ghana and change it to left-hand side. those cars we don't need in this country, because sometimes they can't make it well. You see most of the cars that sometimes having problems on the street are those cars. And also heavily accidented cars that they bring into the country must be banned. If you ban those cars, because there are so many of them, if you count about, let's say, about 85% of all those small cars, all accidental cars that is in the country, and that doesn't help.
Here at Toyota Ghana, head office in Accra, Richard Mensah, the training officer, believes any car, whether brand new or slightly used, can last long if it's frequently maintained.
Yes, for vehicles, there is not a fixed lifespan of the vehicle. It much depends on the maintenance. Maintenance play a lot to the lifespan of a vehicle. If you have a very good maintenance routine, some vehicles can even last over 20 years and above. And it also depends on how well the manufacturer of the product is ready to support. Because there are some manufacturers, after they put out the product, you can't even get the spare parts. Then in that case, you might end up with 5 years lifespan or even less.
Some workers at Toyota workshop shared some basic maintenance tips.
Take off the brake pad, then you look at the diameter of the brake pad. So as you could see, this is less than 5 mm. This is less than 5 mm. So it tells you that the brake pad is worn.
Okay. Yeah. So how long is this one going to last? Or it depends on usage?
It depends on the usage. Depends on the usage, especially with automatic vehicles like this. You know, with automatic vehicles, you use the brake in everything. But if you compare the manual, you have the clutch assisting it. So with the automatic vehicles, the brake pad work faster as compared to the manual. So mostly depends on the usage of the driver.
Whenever there is medium service or heavy service, or any time that the fuel lights will show on the dashboard, you have to change the fuel filter, which is the fuel element. Yeah, so right now there is
when a light shows on the dashboard, that yellow indication.
Especially the Land Cruiser, or Fortuner diesel, or Prado diesel. Yes, you have to change the element, the fuel filter element. Yes, and we fix a new one.
With the numerous rickety vehicles plying our roads and the frequent loss of lives due to avoidable accidents, for now we await the establishment of automobile companies to see where they'll make a difference. Fred Duho's report for Joy Business.
And just before we go, former Deputy Governor of the Bank of Ghana, Dr. Johnson Isiama, is challenging the state against claims that he breached the Bank of Ghana's act in approving a financial deal to defunct Unibank. Dr. Isiama, together with Raymond Amanfo, who was in charge of banking supervision, and others, have been charged with conspiracy to commit crime and breach of trust, among others, in the collapse of Unibank, a claim to which they have all pleaded not guilty. Arguing the case at the High Court Commercial Division, lawyer for the accused Dominic Ayenini told the court that a criminal case cannot be made against his clients because there is no proof of a crime in their professional mandates. We'll bring you details of this particular development in our subsequent bulletins. But for now, that's it for the marketplace. My name is Emmanuel Apwaji. Have a good afternoon.